Hi, I'm Megan. I guess I should probably, get right to the chase. I have struggled with, and or struggling with ADHD, anxiety, depression, PTSD, social anxiety, dermatillomania, which is a skin picking disorder that is associated with OCD, and probably like two or three other things that I'm forgetting. And I know what you're thinking. How do they fit all of those things into one little package? And let me tell you, if I knew, oh boy, would it be different. No, not really. Honestly, I see this as a chance for me to talk, so it's nice. Um, so before I start, I'm going to preface this with I am not a public speaker, so I'm going to stammer a lot. And yeah. Okay, so obviously I have told you a lot of the things I have struggled with, and I personally am fortunate enough to have been diagnosed with these things by a medical professional. I know not everyone is able to get that, and I want to be one of those people, since I am fortunate enough to have had those diagnoses, to be able to say that I think that should be available to all people, regardless of socioeconomic class, gender, race, sexuality, whatever. It should be available for free to everyone. And yeah, I mean, that's probably the most important thing when it comes to having a diagnosis. Not that you need a diagnosis, but just it kind of, when you have a thought of, oh, I might have this and I might not, it just kind of like messes with your brain a lot, honestly, because you're like, am I self-diagnosing? Am I looking for attention? And then all these like other anxieties on top of your already existing anxiety set in, and you're just like, well, you know, am I just like thinking about something that's not even a problem? Like, what's going on? And so in that sense, diagnosis is a little bit more of like a closure thing. Obviously you're going to have to live with it, but it kind of tells you that there was something tangible that you were worrying about. Despite that, every time I got a diagnosis, I kind of felt a little alienated from the society. I kind of felt like I was a weirdo, because I don't know, in elementary school when I got diagnosed, obviously, like, 5-year-olds aren't talking about mental health every other day. And it's not a common issue to have that soon, or a common issue to talk about, or like have your teachers know about all this stuff. And um, so it was really hard growing up, honestly, with no one really understanding what was wrong with me, but knowing that there was something wrong with me. And I use that as quotes because both I thought something was wrong with me, and, just like that's what I felt people were saying when they were like, oh, well, we can't quite figure her out. There are some things going on, but we're not sure like why it's happening and stuff like that. I got severely bullied throughout elementary school, because of anything, because of my height, because of the way I looked, literally anything. And kids can be mean. And so that definitely had quite an effect on how I already was feeling. And then I got diagnosed with ADHD, in about fourth grade. And I was like, oh, well, this kind of explains some of the things that have been going on. Um, where my educational issues and my focus issues, and also the friendship struggles, but also I just didn't have anywhere to look to. I just felt like, I'm different and I just have to deal with that. um, and it started to feel like no one was ever going to love me but my family, um, because they had to. And all of these things started creeping into my head, and I just felt, I guess I always say the word alienated, but really that's how I felt. Um, in middle school, I started doing a little bit more research on my own once I was able to. Technology is amazing if you have access to it. So I, did more research on ADHD and anxiety, because at that point, those were the only two diagnoses I had. And, I was just, trying to make my way. And obviously that's around, the puberty point. So things were getting weird with me and my classmates. Everyone was kind of going through this weird shift of hormones and all that weird stuff that it's really hard to explain. But yeah, that was not, it was a really, I'm not good with change as a person. And so that was a very, you're here, but then, everything's changed and the things that you once used to cope don't work anymore. So now we have to find new ways to cope. And at this point, I had seen like two different therapists. I'm a person who has been through like 4 to 5 different therapists, and it's really a struggle to find a therapist that works for you. I will say that. If you are new to going to therapy or anything, don't expect your first time to be like, oh my gosh, the sky has opened and I now have all the answers and, all my ailments are cured. That's not how it works. It's just not. First of all, you have to put in the work and it's going to be hard. And I hate that part, but it has to be done. But also, not every therapist is going to be the right therapist for you. And if you are not, if you are going to therapy and you feel like you are unable to share with them or confide in them your actual feelings, that is not the therapist for you. And most therapists understand that, and you can just be like, I just don't think this is right for me. Just because whatever reason, just tell them. Most therapists, every therapist in my experience has understood that. But I feel like that's something that's not talked about enough. A lot of people just talk about, going to therapy and then it being like, oh my gosh, I found the right therapist for me. No, it's a struggle. And honestly, it's an ongoing struggle. Because you can think that this person is the right person, the right therapist for you, and then year or two later, it's not really there anymore, and that's fine. That should be normalized, I feel like. Yeah, so therapy was one tool I used. I've used many tools throughout the years. Mindfulness has been one constant that I've just it's been something that it's not the cure all, but it's there for me every time I need to use it, because it's less about reaching out to someone else, or it's less of a stretch. I don't have to bend over backwards. I just have to sit down, think, and breathe, or just breathe. Sometimes you don't even have to think. So definitely, as far as mental health management and coping, one thing I really suggest, and obviously it's not going to work for everyone because there is nothing that works for everyone, but I suggest people look into mindfulness, meditation, breathing techniques, anything like that. Has been very helpful for me specifically. In middle school, I also had my first panic attack and my first situation where I actually experienced stigma in the same day. So in 6th grade, I was in a earth science class and we were watching a documentary about earthquakes. And I have very big anxiety about just like natural disasters in general, or like anything that's dangerous, really. And so they were talking, I don't even remember what they were talking about, but it was about earthquakes. And they were like, oh, there's going to be a big one someday. And I live in California, so this is a realistic issue to semi-realistic issue to be worrying about. And so, my mind was racing and I had my first ever panic attack in that class in the middle of that. And I started crying. I didn't know what was going on, obviously, because I had never had a panic attack before. I didn't even know what they were. But like I was crying, my jaw went numb. I just like checked out of class and I like couldn't handle myself. And my teacher at the time was not she was a very strict teacher, I will say that. And she comes over to me and she's like, she pauses the video. She comes over to me and she yells at me, "Why are you crying?" And I couldn't answer. And she asked me again, "Why are you crying?" And I said, I don't know. I don't know." She yelled at me, pointed to the door and said, "Go outside." So I went outside, and luckily, the teacher who was next door to her classroom saw that I was crying outside, and the other teacher had closed the door on me, and the other teacher brought me water, and sat me down and talked to me about it and made sure I was okay, which was really nice. But that was probably the first like experience I had where someone just didn't understand mental health being an issue. And every time we would talk to her about it after that, she just repeatedly did not understand and did not try to understand. And it just really I go back to the alienation. I just felt like since no one wanted to understand, no one really cared, and I would just have to deal with it. So I did. And then my panic attacks got more frequent. I would have 2 or 3 a week, and I just thought that was normal. I was like, "Okay, this is fine. I'll just." I could usually fake my way through it and just like, go about the motions. I kind of felt like I was on autopilot a lot of the time. And then freshman year of high school, I was diagnosed with depression. And it had been so long since I had been diagnosed with something that I immediately broke down. I just like forgot how to function. I couldn't get out of bed a lot. Um, and I wasn't taking care of myself hygiene wise, anything. And it was a really dark period of my life, honestly. Um, it just kind of broke me. And I think that it is so hard for someone else to see your struggle if you are unwilling to let them know. And that's one thing that I have learned. Obviously, you never are obligated to let someone know your struggle. You're perfectly fine in wanting to keep it private. However, you can't expect someone to, um, you know how to help you if you don't let them know yourself. Um, and also, you need to have the right people in your life. I did not I was not letting the people into my life that I should have been letting into my life at that point. Um, and honestly, it was really toxic. It became more about a competition of whose life is worse. And that's a really toxic situation to be in when you're trying to tell someone, "I'm not happy. I am really struggling right now. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do my homework. I just don't want to do anything." And they just are like, "I know how you feel because this one time I blah, 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 blah." And they'll try and mask it as empathy and be like, "Oh, I totally understand." But really, they don't, excuse my language, they don't give a damn. Like, they don't give a damn. And if you have friends like that, you need to find some better friends, because honestly, they are not going to give you anything. Um, and you are going to work and work and work and work and give, and you are going to get nothing in return. Um, so let me move on with my story, and we'll go to senior year, which was I'm a freshman in college right now, so it was like earlier in 2020, and late 2019. Sorry, that was a really backwards way of saying that. Senior year, I thought everything was going to be awesome. I get to, graduate this year. I'm going to prom. And obviously, once COVID hit, that kind of all got thrown out of a window. And that, the thought of not being able to see any of my high school friends, maybe ever again, really also took a toll on me, because I had just literally just found friends that I completely worked with, and they cared about me, and it was a great period right before COVID hit. And I just felt like all of that was disappearing. And so I decided to, instead of, not throwing myself a pity party, I don't ever want to label emotions as that, but instead of, dwelling on the fact that I was unhappy, I decided I was going to spread some mental health advocacy to the people on my social media, really small scale because I don't have that many followers or anything. But I was like, everyone could use a little help right now. There isn't a person in the world who's not having a hard time right now at this point. So, I want to be that person who's like, how are you doing today? And allow them to speak, because I am one person who, I think, I don't remember, before we started this, someone was talking about this, but I believe that, mental health is not just for people with mental illness. Mental health is for everyone. And when I say everyone, everyone. You don't have to have a mental illness or a diagnosis to have mental health. And so, that was really my mission at the time to, because a lot of people just, who don't have a diagnosis or don't have it in their head that they're supposed to take care of their mental health, don't even think about it. And that blows my mind. Honestly, it does. Some people just don't even think about, oh, I have to take care of myself. I have to keep an eye on how my brain is doing. But yeah, and quarantine has been a kind of crazy ride for all of us, I think. And, I started with a new therapist recently, and that's been going well, for the first time in a long time, which is nice. And I got 2 different diagnoses, which I already kind of saw coming, which was a little more difficult. And, obviously the added stress of college, but not the real college experience, has been hard. But, we're going through the motions. And I think if there's anything that I want people to take away from my story is that, a mental health diagnosis isn't a stop sign. It's not you can never function as a normal human being again. It's just an obstacle. It's an ongoing obstacle. And you are going to have to jump over hurdles every day, whether it's stigma, whether it's people who don't believe you have a real mental illness, whether it's people thinking you're making excuses, whether it's your actual mental illness and its symptoms, whether it's, anything. Everyone has those obstacles, and that shouldn't stop you. Don't be the person to say, oh, this is too high for me, I can't jump over that. You can jump over that, I promise you. And every day that, you jump over those obstacles, you're going to feel more and more and more like you belong, because you've earned your way. That's all I have.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your strength. I mean, I know that took a lot just to kind of be able to, hey, like, it's not just talking about, hey, this is a bad week. It's, hey, let's talk about the whole experience.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
That's tough. But you look at how much you've grown. Like, think about where you were before. Like, maybe go back into like mid senior year. Think about where you were there. And it's like, if you look at yourself right now, that's just pure growth. That is
absolutely.
And that's amazing. And I'm definitely thankful to have you a part of all of us. And I'm really excited to see where every single one of you guys go with being a mental health advocate, because it's about using our stories and really giving out as many resources as we can, and helping others find different ways to get the help that they need. Because we talked about this before, it's not easily accessible to everyone. And then you were talking, you hit so many good points in your in your story, and then like finding a good fit for your therapist. That's not a topic that usually comes up. I hated my first 4 because it wasn't even anything personal. I just was in denial about the 5 diagnoses that they gave me. And so the sessions turned into me just being a smartass. Me just, oh, how are you doing? They're like, no, it's not about me. Like, talk. Oh, you're not going to share? There was times we sat in silence, and I'm just like, all right. But I ended up in an inpatient center, and I spent over a month in there because I was suicidal. But after my depressive episode went away, I had no idea why I was in a hospital.
Yeah.
I literally was just like, I feel fine. They're like, you're not talking about why you came here. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, bipolar type 1 kind of works that way. So that was exciting.
Yeah.
But I spent my whole life running away from a diagnosis because I didn't want to turn out, because my mom was diagnosed with bipolar, and that's all I grew up with. And there was times where she was on her medications. There's time where she wasn't. And I just remember just like thinking like that won't happen to me, because bipolar only happens to girls. Because my mom, my cousin, and my grandma all have it. And when they said what it was, I became exactly what I was running away from. And it didn't help me hearing that that's what I was. It just made me go in more denial about my own mental health. And that was back in 2015. 5 years happened after that, and it was until this year that I started taking care of my mental health. So it gets tough. It gets tough when you don't take care of it. I'm really glad you were able to get the help that you needed, and kind of frequently we're seeing a therapist or someone to talk to and helping you navigate your way through, where sometimes it's helpful, but sometimes you're looking at a piece of paper with a bunch of different words on it and you're just like, this isn't all I am.
Exactly. Absolutely. And, obviously I'm nowhere near, a full recovery, if that even exists.
I don't get it.
And every day is a struggle. But one thing that I am a strong believer in is, instead of having a bad day and having bad feelings and saying, oh, I need to push this away, this is bad for me, I need to, keep that out of my mind. So many people say, oh, stay positive, and oh, whatever you are putting out into the universe, that's what you're getting back. So just don't have bad thoughts. Well, I would if I could. And so instead of that, I think we should, normalize saying it's okay to have those bad feelings. It's okay, because the sooner you let them be real, and the sooner you allow yourself to feel, the less you will bottle them up until you eventually explode. And that is not good for anyone, or healthy, or anything. So the sooner you allow yourself to feel, and the sooner you say, these emotions may not feel the best for me right now, and just, let yourself feel that. Let yourself be in that place, because otherwise you're going to make up excuses for why you are not allowed to feel the way you feel.
Yeah. What is that called? Like, not negative positivity. Why can't I think of it right now?
I think it's toxic positivity.
There you go. There you go. All right. All right. Now we're back. Yeah. Yeah. It's not always just, oh, be happy, or, karma. It's like, yep. It's like, no. It's sometimes no. Sometimes it's just really bad right now. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. There's just life. Life sometimes just isn't fair. Sometimes it throws you a little more obstacles than not. And at the end of the day, we've gotten all where we are today to a point of strength, and we could look back at that journey that we did go on, but man, some of those obstacles, that's not karma. And for a long time, I blamed traumatic events on karma. And I'm not talking about a bad day. I'm talking about life-changing events for me. And I chalked it up to, I wasn't the best of person to a lot of people. And I guess, like, one really terrible thing, I guess that makes it better. This is how I guess the world of mental health goes. And that's not true.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. That was fantastic. And Adrian?
All right, hello guys. So it's been a very long time since I've actually spoken about my history with mental health. I speak about it every so often here and there, but more so just like recent events and things that are going on. But I really like how Megan kind of took us through her timeline, because I feel like it's important to note that there are things that happen throughout children's lives and into your teens, and it affects you into your adult years. And there's so much stigma around it. And so I don't know if we're doing trigger warnings, but maybe, I don't know, suicidal thoughts and self-harm is kind of what I'm going to.
I'll put a trigger warning on when I put this one up. If we kind of touched on it a little bit on the last one, but yeah, I mean, this is a safe space, and I'll just put the warning out there.
Okay. All right. So I was a little bit of history. My mom and my dad were kind of terrible parents, and so.
Mom, where's the bag?
Hold on. Okay.
Candy.
Go. But anyway, so when I was born, I lived with my mom till I was 2, and then my dad kind of took over until I was 4, but I mostly just lived with my grandma, right? And my grandma decided that my parents were not fit to raise me, and she did try go through the courts to get full custody, but she was only granted like every other weekend type of guardianship. And I was used to living with her anyways, because even though I was in my dad's custody, he was rarely around. So I was used to like having my grandma around all the time. And then, because she's South African and my dad is South African, and South Africa does not allow extradition, she took it upon herself, bless her soul, to, the legal term would be kidnap me. And
did you know I'm half of like somebody in the movie, but like.
Yeah, I love how like real life this is. Like, life doesn't stop for our mental health. That's a good little tidbit there. But, continue with your thing.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want my son to overhear the conversation. He's only 5. That's a bit much. But so now go get the boy. There you go. Thanks, Ryder. Love you. All right. But anyways, so when I was 4, my grandma took me to South Africa. She asked me if I wanted to go on a vacation to meet my great grandma in South Africa. And I was 4. So I was like, yeah. And then she raised me over there until I was almost 14. When I got a little bit older and I'd start asking questions and stuff, she'd tell me, you know, yeah, we just decided to stay out here because your parents don't want you. And I was like, that's okay. Why don't they want me? Oh, that doesn't matter. It's okay. I want you, so it's okay. And then, and I mean, like, she was a great mom substitute. You know, she was a grandma raising her granddaughter, and she felt so strongly about it, she committed a crime to do it. But and I still have so much love for her, and I'm grateful. But at the same time, I didn't realize then that there's a wound that you develop as a child when you're separated from your parents at a young age, and that really affected me. And I was in 6th grade when I'd first planned my suicide. And I remember because my grandma, she's gun toting. We lived in South Africa. You have to have a gun, okay? So she had a gun in her room, and I remember I was planning it all. And then I had a cat. I've always had an emotional support animal my entire life. I just never really called him that, but my cat was my emotional support animal. And then I was getting ready to do it. I'd planned everything out. I'd written my goodbye notes, and then my cat was scratching at my door. He really wanted to come in. And I was like, no, bro, you cannot come in right now. This is going to traumatize you. And then he came in and he sat in my lap, and more than he ever had before, because he wasn't the most affectionate cat. He was more of an alley cat, really. So he was always gone. But he just sat in my lap, and I don't know, he just gave me that little extra support that I really needed in that moment. And that's when I was like, I can't go through with this. You know, I was thinking about him, and I was like, my grandma loves you, but I can't trust her to take care of you the way that I take care of you, you know? And I was like, no, you need me. So even though I want to go, I'm going to stay. And I took her gun back to her room, and I put it in her little box that she kept it in. And I just bawled and I bawled and I bawled. And then it was a year later in 7th grade. I don't really know exactly what was going on. I have a lot of dissociative lack of memory. So I don't remember a whole lot of my childhood or my life really. But I do remember I was sitting in class in 7th grade, and I was like two seats from the door, and I don't know what it was, but I saw my pencil sharpener, and I saw my my pair of scissors, and I just kind of, you know, loosened the blade, and I wasn't even doing it to harm myself, or I don't think I was even having a sad moment that I can remember, but I took that blade and I carved my name into my arm, and I started bleeding, and I was like, oh shoot. Okay, that's real life. I just did a thing. Mama, baby, hold on. And then I can't find the bowl. Give me just a minute, dude. Love you. Thank you. Skedaddle. But anyways, so my teacher, he noticed what was happening, and he got all types mad, and he hollered at me in the middle of class in front of everyone, and he was like, what the hell is wrong with you? What are you doing? And I was like, honestly, I don't even know. I just did a thing, dude. I just did a thing. I don't know. And then he was just yelling at me and making fun of me and calling me names in front of the entire class. And then he told me to get up and go to the bathroom and clean myself off. And so I did that. I walked down the hall, and I think I was trying not to pass out because I was just having a moment, and I struggled to get to the bathroom, but I finally made it to the bathroom and I collapsed on the floor and I just started crying. And all I could think of was I didn't understand what was happening or why. And I was also very embarrassed and I didn't want to go back to class, but I would have to go back sometime. But I was like, I'm just gonna wait it out. And so one of the girls from my class, she came down. She was like, hey, so Mr. Payne sent me down because he wants me to make sure, you know, that you're coming back to class or where you are, stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm just using the bathroom. I'll be there when I'm done. And so I tried to collect myself, and I went back to class, and then again in front of everyone. He never sat me aside one time one-on-one, but in front of the whole class, he was like, you are lucky that I don't call your mom, and you're lucky that I don't send you to the principal's office. I'm gonna let this slide this one time. And it better never happen again. And all I could think of was, I'm grateful because I don't want you to tell my grandma because I don't know how to have this conversation with her. She's gonna freak out. Now that I'm older though, and looking back on it, I feel like that was a horrible educator, and he really should have told my grandma. He should have, because I just went through so many more years with just struggles with my mental health. It got to the point where I was struggling so bad, my grandma